There's a moment that happens almost every single time. A notification pops up. A trending tab flickers with a name you don't recognize, or maybe one you do. Something is happening, right now, live, and thousands of people are already watching. And before you've even decided to click, your thumb has already moved. That small, quiet pull you just felt, the one that made you want to see what's going on even before you knew what it was, that's not a character flaw. That's not you being a bad person. That is one of the oldest wiring systems in the human brain, and today we're going to open it up and look at exactly why it's there, why it's getting hijacked, and why the internet has become the perfect machine for exploiting it. Because here's the thing that makes this so uncomfortable. We tell ourselves we're better than this. We tell ourselves that watching a stranger's worst moment unfold in real time is something other people do, not us. And then the moment arrives, and we watch anyway. So the real question isn't why does the internet do this to us? The real question is why are we built in a way that makes this so easy to do to us in the first place? And the answer starts a long, long time before smartphones existed. Let's go back. Not centuries. Not even to the invention of television. Let's go back to a time when the difference between paying attention and not paying attention was the difference between living and dying. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a clearing, tens of thousands of years ago, and somewhere off in the distance, something has gone wrong. Maybe a predator has taken someone down. Maybe there's been a fall, a fight, a disaster. The people who turned away, who told themselves it was too upsetting to look, they didn't get the information they needed. But the people who watched, even though it was horrifying, even though every instinct told them to look away, they walked away with something valuable. They learned what the danger looked like. They learned where it came from. They learned how fast it moved and what triggered it. And that knowledge, as awful as it was to acquire, kept them alive the next time. Psychologists have a name for this. It's called threat simulation theory, and the researcher who's done some of the most compelling work on it, Dr. Colton Scrivener, describes morbid curiosity as essentially a built-in threat assessment system. When your brain sees something frightening or catastrophic happening to another person, it isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's asking a series of rapid-fire questions underneath your conscious awareness. What caused this? Could this happen to me? What would I do if it did? Is there a way to prevent it? You're not watching because you're cruel. You're watching because some ancient part of your brain has classified this as urgent, useful information, even when your modern, rational mind knows there's nothing you can actually do with it. And there's a second layer to this that makes it even more compelling, which is the physical sensation of watching from safety. When you see something extreme unfold on a screen, your body still responds as if it's real. Cortisol rises. Adrenaline spikes. Your heart rate picks up just slightly. But underneath all of that, your body also knows something crucial, which is that you are not actually in danger. You're sitting on your couch. You're safe. And that combination, danger signal plus physical safety, creates what a lot of psychologists describe as a roller coaster effect. It's the same reason people pay money to watch horror movies or ride roller coasters. Your nervous system gets the thrill of danger and the relief of safety back to back, and that combination is, whether we like to admit it or not, deeply compelling to the human brain. So that's the first piece. Ancient wiring, dressed up in a modern feed. But that alone doesn't fully explain what happens when a crisis goes viral, because watching a stranger in danger is one thing. Watching someone you feel like you know, someone whose face has been in your feed for years, someone whose voice you recognize before you even see the video, that hits differently. And this is where we have to talk about something called a parasocial relationship. A parasocial relationship is the one-sided emotional bond we form with someone we've never actually met. It happens with musicians, with actors, with influencers, with anyone who shares enough of their life publicly and consistently that our brains start to categorize them the same way we categorize a real friend. And here's the strange part. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between a relationship built on years of daily contact and a relationship built on years of watching someone's videos. Both start to feel like familiarity. Both start to feel like intimacy. So when that person, the one who has spent years performing a curated, polished version of themselves for an audience, suddenly appears unfiltered, distressed, at their absolute lowest point, something in the viewer's mind reads that as access to the truth. This feels like finally seeing behind the curtain. And that pull toward authenticity, even catastrophic authenticity, is one of the most powerful hooks in the entire attention economy. Now layer onto that the fact that you're almost never watching alone. You're watching with the comment section scrolling past in real time, with the viewer count climbing into the thousands, sometimes the hundreds of thousands. And this creates something researchers call de-individuation, which is basically what happens to your sense of personal responsibility when you're part of a massive, anonymous crowd. Think about it like an arena. If you were the only person standing at that door, you would feel an intense, immediate pressure to do something, to knock, to call someone, to intervene. But if you're one face among 200,000 tiny video thumbnails, your brain quietly reasons that someone else is probably already handling it. This is a version of the bystander effect, the well-documented phenomenon where the more people who witness an emergency, the less likely any single person is to act, because responsibility spreads so thin across the crowd that it starts to feel like it isn't really yours at all. Put a screen and a comment section between you and another human being's crisis, and that diffusion of responsibility becomes almost automatic. So now we've got ancient threat detection, we've got the pull of parasocial intimacy, and we've got a crowd that quietly erases our sense of individual accountability. But there's a fourth piece, and this is the piece that turns a psychological tendency into a full-blown viral event, and that's the algorithm sitting underneath all of it. Here's something worth sitting with for a second. The platforms that host these moments do not have a system that asks whether an emotion is good or bad. They have a system that measures exactly one thing above almost everything else, and that's how long you stay, and how fast the content spreads. Joy keeps people scrolling for a while. Curiosity keeps people scrolling longer. But fear, shock, and moral outrage, those are the emotions that make people stop scrolling entirely and lock in. High arousal states, the kind that flood your body with adrenaline, are simply more effective at capturing and holding attention than calm, low arousal ones. The algorithm doesn't know the difference between a video that makes you feel inspired and a video that makes you feel horrified. It only knows that both of them kept you watching, and it will show you more of whichever one works better. And in a straight competition between calm and chaos, chaos usually wins the engagement game every single time. This is also why taking something down almost never makes it disappear. Once a platform removes a stream, or a family asks for privacy, or the original poster's account gets suspended, the content doesn't vanish. It fragments. It gets screen recorded, clipped, reposted across a dozen other platforms, often faster than moderators can keep up with. And there's a psychological reason this happens beyond simple malice. Psychologist Jack Brim described something called reactance theory decades ago, the idea that when people perceive their freedom to access something is being restricted, they don't just accept the restriction, they often want that thing more, specifically because it's now forbidden. Tell the internet it can't see something, and you've just handed a portion of that audience a reason to go looking for it themselves. Now, all of this comes at a cost, and it's worth being honest about what that cost actually is, both for the people watching and the people being watched. For the viewer, repeated exposure to intense, real, unfiltered human distress does something measurable to the nervous system over time. This is a well-documented pattern called desensitization. The first time you see something genuinely shocking, your body reacts strongly. But exposure teaches the brain what to expect, and each subsequent exposure requires a little more intensity to produce the same reaction. What would have stopped you in your tracks 5 years ago barely registers now. Researchers who study self-harm content on social media in particular have found that repeated exposure doesn't just numb people, it can actually increase distress and, worryingly, contribute to contagion effects among viewers who are already vulnerable. So the cost isn't abstract. It's a slow erosion of sensitivity, and in some cases, a genuine mental health risk to people already struggling. And for the person on the other side of the screen, the one actually living through the crisis, there's a different, quieter cost. When an audience's attention and demand turn someone's worst moment into a piece of consumable content, it changes the incentive structure around recovery itself. Getting better, quietly and privately, doesn't generate views. Crisis does. And a culture that rewards visible suffering with attention, however unintentionally, is a culture that makes healing harder, not easier, for the people it claims to care about. So where does that leave us? Because it would be easy to end this by saying human beings are simply wired to be voyeurs and there's nothing to be done about it. But that's not quite true, and it's not quite fair either. Looking, in that first split second, isn't proof that someone is cruel or broken. It's proof that an ancient threat detection system is doing exactly what it evolved to do, except now it's running on an algorithm engineered specifically to exploit it, at a scale and speed evolution never had to account for. The part that actually is a choice is what happens after that first instinct. It's the decision to keep watching once curiosity has already been satisfied. It's the decision to hit share, to comment, to keep the loop going. Because the single most effective way to interrupt this entire cycle, more effective than any platform policy, is incredibly simple. Scroll away. Don't reshare. Report it if the option exists. Turn off autoplay so you're not pulled into the next crisis the moment one ends. None of these actions feel dramatic in the moment, but engagement is the fuel this entire system runs on, and starving it, one small decision at a time, is the only lever any of us individually actually have. If this topic hit close to home, or if you or someone you know is struggling, support is available. In the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Crisis Lifeline, anytime, day or night.